Hi, everyone. Doug Jenkins with the Findlay-Hancock County Chamber of Commerce with you once again here on our YouTube page, starting a new series of videos where we get you access to people where otherwise you might not have a chance to talk to them or have them answer your questions. We want to make sure that our members get informative information. That was redundant, but we're going to go with it. We want to make sure that you have access to the latest in what's happening in the world of business. My guest today is Dr. Jessica Methot of the Rutgers School of Management and Labor Relations. That's a mouthful, but a lot of interesting things going on in your department right now. First of all, just how are things at Rutgers? Obviously, you're a little bit more of a population dense area than we are.
Yeah, we're doing really well. I think we're, trying to do the best that we can to provide a really good educational and engaging learning experience for the students. We're still online for the summer, but we're hopeful that we'll be able to get back in person in the fall.
Well, on behalf of everybody at Ohio, you said you had colleagues at Ohio State before we got started here, but I do have to say, go Bucks. Otherwise, they would fire me from the chamber immediately, and so I have to get that out there.
I'll take it.
You guys were gonna have a good basketball team too this last
We
year.
had a great basketball team
Yeah,
this year. It was amazing, and we were so disappointed they weren't able to go to their conference. We were really, really proud of those guys.
that was disappointing. But all right, we're not here to talk sports, although I could go in that direction for a few minutes. What we are here to talk about is office relationships, and that's something that over the last few months, as a lot of us have been working from home. You're at your home office. I'm in a spare bedroom right now. These things have broken down to a degree, and those interpersonal relationships that we had aren't the same. And coincidentally, you were writing a paper on the dynamics of interoffice relationships and what office small talk means at about the same time, and it ended up being pretty prescient.
Thanks. Yeah. This was a study that really kind of evolved out of a decade of research that I've been doing using social network analysis. So, as a social network analyst, I study collaboration, patterns of interaction and communication among employees, and how those patterns create a certain kind of culture, how they help with productivity and efficiency and creativity, and really the idea that being friends and having informal relationships and conversations with our coworkers can really subsidize a positive and inclusive work environment. And, the idea for this study, you mentioned that I just recently published a study on small talk. We started doing this study almost 3 years ago, and we were talking about its relevance for remote work, but we really did not anticipate what kind of an impact it was going to have with this disruption and this transition to so many people having to work remotely and work from home.
Well, let's get into the study itself. I always like to start there. Obviously, you have to outline your methodology before you go into a study like this. Now, I'm curious about what the process was in the study.
Sure. So, this was a really fun study to design and to administer. So, we were really interested in the lived experiences of employees engaging in small talk with their coworkers. So, we surveyed 151 full-time working employees who were working on site at the time, kind of co-located with their coworkers, and we gave them 3 surveys a day for 3 weeks. Every day for 3 weeks, they filled out 3 surveys a day, and this kind of helped us understand the extent to which they were engaging in different levels of small talk every day, and then the extent to which those different levels of small talk really resulted in beneficial or kind of dysfunctional outcomes. And generally, we found that it was largely positive. We were kind of surprised. One of my co-authors absolutely hates small talk, and he was, betting on it was going to be horrible and everyone was going to hate it and it was going to have really bad effects. But we found, by and large, that it really boosted positive emotions, made people feel a sense of connection with their coworkers, made them feel acknowledged and seen versus being ignored. If you were just to kind of walk by someone in the hallway, you know what that feels like, that
Right.
sense of exclusion. So just, those superficial greetings, chatting with someone really gave them a sense of acknowledgement, and it boosted their well-being at the end of every day.
It's interesting. You mentioned the one of the co-authors in the study betting against this being beneficial, and I think that might be something sometimes people misunderstand about academic studies. Is by and large, you're more curious to see what the result is going to be rather than I want it to go this way. You might think it's going to go that way, but sometimes the surprising outcome is more worthwhile.
That's exactly right. I mean, the results of this study are based on thousands of cases over, through all of these people over a series of days. And it's completely evidence-based. We had our own opinions about it and what we thought. And after the study came out, we realized just how polarizing the topic of small talk is. People love it, people hate it. But I really do think, regardless of what our personal feelings are about small talk, we know how important it is in organizations. There wouldn't be endless books and training programs on how to engage in effective small talk if it wasn't important.
Let's get into some of the findings. Obviously, it leans towards that you need to have these interactions. What are ways to make them go in a positive direction, though?
Yeah, so one of the things that came up during this study is that we wanted to make sure we weren't kind of blurring the lines between small talk and gossip. So I think there's a really negative stigma about gossip and how exclusionary it is and how negative it is. The tone can be relatively negative. It typically means you're referring to someone and kind of talking about them without them being present. The idea behind small talk is that it's essentially trivial, it's lighthearted, it's polite. It follows a script. We know kind of how to engage in small talk. Someone asks you how you are, you know that the scripted response is I'm well. You don't kind of blurt out exactly how you're feeling or you've violated the social norm of small talk. And so in being able to kind of isolate actual small talk, that was what helped us find the positive effect. So boosting well-being, it showed that people were more likely to or more willing to engage in pro-social behaviors. So going out of their way to help their coworkers, for example, attending voluntary work events when the day was over. But of course, we did find some negative effects. It was distracting,
Right.
right? Not surprisingly, if people are kind of coming up to you and having conversations, interrupting your work, it's really, really hard to concentrate and to keep focus. And so it did result in leaving people with kind of a time famine, where if they were constantly interrupted, even if it was for polite small talk, they were left feeling like they didn't have enough time in the day to finish their work.
So important to manage it to a degree, but as you've stated, important to have it. And now, in the situation that we find ourselves in with COVID-19, a lot of us working from home, you miss out on that. And what are the effects of people working remotely and then not having that interaction?
It's such an important transition that we're seeing. And, I feel like small talk is one of the things that we're most easily able to let go of or overlook, right? It's spontaneous in the workplace. We don't plan it. We're walking down the hallway and we see someone, or we, greet someone at the coffee machine or in the break room or the water cooler. And so they're unplanned. We have more opportunity to have these spontaneous interactions. When we're working from home, we're just trying to be as efficient as we can. We're seeing productivity plummet during this pandemic. It's not a lot of people's choices to work from home. Kids are at home, constant interruptions, constant work-family conflict. And so it's really difficult to kind of carve out time to make sure that we're really being as productive as we can and as we want to be. Small talk is easy to just ignore. It's easy to just push to the side and say, we don't have time for this. We're trying to keep our Zoom meetings to 20 minutes with just
Right.
a handful of people, right? Like, let's just dive right in. But that's really the goal of small talk. Is it's a social lubricant. We use it to kind of grease the wheels. We don't normally just dive into a meeting without having a little bit of chit chat just to see how people are doing. And so as managers, I think it's really important to build these casual conversations into the remote working ecosystem, to give people just a few minutes, just a brief opportunity to kind of catch up, ask how they're doing, how their day has been. Again, it's not in depth. These aren't intimate, really lengthy conversations.
How can like a chat program like at our Chamber of Commerce, we use Microsoft Teams. There are offices that use Slack, programs of that nature. Can they help bridge that gap at least to a degree? I know that we try and do a little light chit chat on our chat channel as well. And I guess the nice thing is if you're busy, you don't have to respond to it right away. You can get back to
Right. You can kind of just ignore them. Yes, I do think that there's a place for it. It doesn't necessarily have the same benefits. Again, it's not necessarily as spontaneous. You don't have the opportunity to just run into people who you wouldn't normally see or talk to. So you're really focusing on just being able to have those conversations with people who you're already working with for a particular reason. It's still really useful, but it's not the same as that face-to-face interaction. I am seeing some really neat initiatives that organizations are introducing. So things like a 20-minute video chat roulette. So they will just kind of randomly pair employees together who don't necessarily know each other, and they have to talk for 20 minutes about something that's completely not work related. And so it just gives them a chance to unwind, right? Like small talk gives us a chance to re-energize, set aside work for a minute. And so rather than seeing it as a distraction or a time wasting activity, we can really use it to build that connection.
Well, I think we're all really focused on the mental health aspect of work right now, and finding the best ways to do our jobs without just driving ourselves insane. And you don't think about these types of things as being a way to just, hey, okay, I've got to go into the office today. You know what? I want to run into some people that I like. We're going to, we'll talk a little bit. I'll get my work done and things aren't so bad. When you take that element out, you can see how it grinds on people. So I think this is a study that came out at exactly the right time.
Yeah, thank you. And to add on to that, I think it's something that senior leaders and managers and business owners need to acknowledge also, that it isn't just a way to waste time, that it does give employees energy. It creates higher employee engagement. So the more employees are engaged with their coworkers and the work that they're doing, the more willing they are to kind of dedicate effort and energy to the work and to perform better, and they're less likely to quit. They don't feel as burned out. The former US Surgeon General claimed that workplace loneliness is a modern epidemic. So this
Wow.
idea that we're actually feeling very disconnected and feeling very lonely, this set of affiliation needs is being met by small talk.
All right. Well, Dr. Violet, we appreciate you joining us today. If people want to learn more about your study, at least read the abstracts, where can they go about doing that?
Sure. So obviously you can contact me on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to share the whole paper. The abstract can be found on the Academy of Management Journal website.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
And again, subscribe to our YouTube channel. More videos on the way. I'm Doug Jenkins with the Findlay Hancock County Chamber of Commerce.